Wide receivers make a lot of money these days, but guess what? When they get hurt, it really hurts the team. We're going to talk about two teams missing wideouts in just a second on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Buddy, welcome to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I'm your host, Tony the Barber Wiggins, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Kevin Oestreicher. And I'm going to let you know what we're going to be talking about today, man. We got some wild stuff going on here today. In segment 3, we're going to end up talking about teams winning by running. 5 teams won without throwing 20 passes. The Lions, they aren't in panic mode at all in Detroit, I think. And then in the first segment, we're going to start off with Eagles and Niners with number one wide receiver issues. We're going to get to that in just a second. We appreciate you making us your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here on Locked On NFL, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to tune in again on Locked On NFL tomorrow morning for the madman, Tyler Rowland, for more NFL coverage. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, just $5, and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Kevin Oestreicher, we got some good stuff to talk about. Both of us cover teams that are 0-2. So we got to get all up in other people's business. That's what we do. We deflect here in the barbershop. And we're going to get started with some injury concerns with both the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. The Eagles lost last night's game, and they were not as explosive. And you could see that they truly did miss A.J. Brown.
Yeah, they 100% did. And I mean, I know forgot players like Jahan Dotson, who Howie Roseman tried to bring in before the season. You know, it's without A.J. Brown in there, you lose a ton of your explosiveness. Dallas Goedert hasn't really gotten off to the start. I mean, Saquon's been that offense alongside Devonta Smith, but you need a couple more guys in order to get going here. And A.J. Brown, you could tell in this game against Atlanta, they could have used him in a big way. They probably wouldn't if they have him.
Yeah, they probably do. You're right. Let me go up to my man up with Locked On Eagles and see exactly what he has to say about it.
Wide receiver A.J. Brown, he's been ruled out. This was kind of sudden. A.J. Brown was not on the injury report until late in the week when he was limited as a participant in Friday's practice with a hamstring injury, and then he did not practice in Saturday's walkthrough, then was ruled out Sunday morning for this game against Atlanta. Look, I don't think there's like a severity issue we should be concerned with when it comes to this injury. I think if this was week 17 or 18 and the Eagles are trying to clinch the NFC East or the 1 seed, or this is a playoff game, like it's playoff week, I think A.J. Brown would be playing in this game. But I think the Eagles are leaning towards the side of caution. They want to make sure one of their best players is good to go because they saw last year what can happen without A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and we saw tonight what could happen without A.J. Brown. And I do believe, I recall last year him, getting upset when he wasn't getting the ball and people were calling him selfish. Now you see why number one wide receivers act the way they act. Give it up to my man Louis DiBiase for dropping that gem on us. He explained it perfectly. A.J. Brown is the guy that takes so much pressure off everybody else. There's a guy in San Francisco that takes pressure off of everyone else too. His name is Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel gets used a lot, Kevin. I always thought now he'd be a perfect Baltimore Raven, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but he gets hurt a lot, but they use him a lot. And I think, you almost have to be careful now with the fact that they have all of these other guys injured and hope he's not out too long.
Yeah, and I think that, I think a lot of people talk about this, and I agree with it. This is, in my opinion, probably the last year of Deebo and Brandon Ayuk together in San Francisco. They're going to have to make some decisions on a couple of their guys with their financial situation. But the way that Deebo is used, he has been injury prone over the course of his career. He takes a beating, man. I mean, he does so much for them, and he's such a versatile and important part of that team. But it seems like we do see a couple of Deebo injuries every season. And this one, I guess, kind of came out of nowhere with the timeline. I think that, we weren't really expecting anything. But now, I mean, look, good thing Brandon Ayuk is still there, because if Brandon Ayuk was in Pittsburgh right now, San Francisco would be in even more trouble than they are.
They would be in trouble. And speaking of all the things he does, listen to Eric Crocker and Brian Peacock of Locked on 49ers when they tell you exactly what you just said.
All right, the news of the day, Croc. Deebo Samuel is out, and it looks like he's going to miss a couple of weeks with a calf strain. So calf's doing a number on the San Francisco 49ers, and Deebo got hurt late in the game, calf injury. He's going to be out now a couple of weeks. So no Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel. 49ers 1-1, and they will be without those guys for at least a couple more weeks now.
I was thinking about it, and I was just like, man, like how we were all worried about Brandon Ayuk coming off of an injury, and you have to worry about the soft tissue injuries, and it's Deebo that ends up getting a strain early on. But he's done a lot. Not only is he a guy that they put out there at receiver, last game against the New York Jets, how many times did he carry the ball? Was it 8 times, running inside the tackles, outside the tackles? This game, they had him back there on kickoff return. And although I think he only had like one opportunity to return a kick, but just him being out there, just more usage. So Deebo Samuel has kind of been the unsung hero, just a little bit of a guy who's kind of been all over the place for the 49ers.
Yeah, and you see exactly what I'm talking about. That's something that they're echoing the same thing that you said. So here's what I want to do. We know how important both guys are to each team. If you had to pick one based on where the team is right now, I know who I'm going to pick. I'm going to say the loss of Deebo Samuel hurts the 49ers way worse than the loss of A.J. Brown. That doesn't mean he's not as good a player. And those two, they kind of gone back and forth a little bit, jawing at each other over the years. I just think with Christian McCaffrey being injured, with Ricky Pearsall, the rookie, not really, missing most of training camp and not really being available, I just really believe this now limits Brock Purdy's ability to just play within the flow of the offense, and it might cause him to try to do too much.
Yeah, I agree with you, where if the Eagles were also missing Saquon or, Devonta Smith, like I would say, okay, AJ Brown 100%. But I think you put together the actual, like, McCaffrey and Deebo together, that to me is where you could get by, I'd say, without McCaffrey, right? Like, he's a huge part of their offense, big part of what they do. But with Deebo, with Brandon Ayuk, with their other weapons, they avoided a scare with George Kittle. It seemed like, as he was just getting some, he was carted off, and everybody's like, oh, he's done for the year. But no, obviously not the case. But for Deebo, again, he's just like the super versatile player for them, and he catches defenses off guard. And now with him and Christian McCaffrey out, like Jordan Mason has stepped up for McCaffrey, but it's like, okay, you mentioned it with like Pearsall and Deebo. It's like, well, Brandon Ayuk is there, but who else is going to step up? At least the Eagles still have a couple of offensive weapons left, and it feels like even for A.J. Brown, he probably will be able to suit up next week based off of everything that we're being told right now. But for Deebo, man, especially the way San Francisco looked against Minnesota, I don't know. It might be a little scary there in San Fran right now.
Might be a little bit scary, and might be scary for some teams around the league that have either lost the game or that they haven't won a game yet, or they lost the game in a fashion. And in segment number 2, I got some interesting stuff I want to play for y'all, man. I seen a lot of stuff over the years in the barbershop. 34 years in the game, and I can always tell when somebody's deflecting and they got some hurt. Usually they say something like, I'm not going to panic. And then the panic comes out of their voice. In segment number 2, I want y'all to check out what my man Matt Derry lays on you and what the guys from Locked On Colts lay on you. Don't go away, because I want y'all to tell me it's just not me that notices. They said they're not panicking, but I think they are. We'll get to that in just a second here. Segment number 2 on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Look, man, I'm going to let you know right now, I've owned several businesses, and each time I kind of got bogged down with contractors and regulations and making sure I was doing everything the correct way, and I forgot I had to hire people to work, right? So I got with LinkedIn, and guess what? They got me settled in really, really fast with a whole bunch of people and helped me staff an entire barbershop. 12 people. That's right. LinkedIn can do it because it's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, listen to this, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Let me tell you something about Game Time, man. You can wait till the last minute to buy tickets. And usually people say it's not ideal and your lack of planning is not their emergency. Game Time won't tell you anything like that because your lack of planning fits right into their wheelhouse. You can get last minute deals, man, and all of that stuff at Game Time. All in pricing, seat views, the lowest price guarantee. Game Time ticket coverage if you do buy them early, and you can get your Game Time picks also. All you got to do is download the Game Time app, man, and don't worry about anything and just leave all the heavy lifting to Game Time. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'll spell it for you. LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On NFL. I'll welcome my man Kevin Ostracker back in. Kevin, we know about grief. We know, well, you don't know as much as I do because the ratings are usually pretty consistent. But you know how it is when you cover a team that you love and things just don't go right, right?
Yep.
And then you vent a little bit. And you try not to show it, but you can't help yourself, man. It comes out. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Locked On Lions host, my friend, my brother, Matt Derry.
Time for the Lions to get their identity back on the road this week. Everybody take a deep breath. I'm not panicking. I look at this division. I watched the Bears last night. I've seen the Packers play. Minnesota's off to a 2-0 start. I tried to warn everybody the Vikings were not going to be some joke team. They're off to a 2-0 start and playing pretty good football, and all of a sudden, Sam Darnold looks great. Everyone's talking about Sam Darnold ascending. Everybody's talking about Jared Goff descending. Water will find its level with both guys. Jared Goff is going to start playing better. Sam Darnold is going to start Sam Darnolding. That will take place here. All right. We're not talking about the Saints going to the Super Bowl just because they won the first 2 games, are we? No, we're not.
You know what else we wasn't talking about? The Detroit Lions. We just going to salvo everybody else and just lob a grenade and just crush everybody else. The whole division, Sam Darnold for the second week in a row just caught shrapnel, and all he did was just win 2 games, right? And poor Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints is just sitting down there, and he's happy they just beat the Cowboys. And Matt Derry in 45 seconds just said, ain't none of y'all going to do nothing, and I ain't going to even address the fact that the Lions lost. That's to me, I saw right through it. I said, look at him. He said, nah, he ain't going to panic, and now all he going to do is just sling mud on everybody else. That's funny. Now, that's funny. Did you see it?
He said, the rest of the NFC North, you're trash. Oh, by the way, NFC South teams, you're trash too. You're not getting away with it too. You're trash too. But man, look, let me tell you, man, this Lions team does have some stuff. Look, shout out to Dan Campbell for taking the accountability, but we're not going to let the Lions off the hook here. Look, if the NFC North is trash, the Lions are in the NFC North and they're trash too. That everybody's getting it, not just all the 3 teams and not the Lions.
All right, so I'm going to circle back on him in segment 3 because there's something he's right about. And what that is Jared Goff don't need to be throwing the ball 55 times playing against nobody. And if that happens, they're not going to win. That is not their identity. Dan Campbell sort of alluded to that a little bit. My man Matt Derry could have done it too. I think he actually did it. Go check the whole video out because I edited that a little bit, but he actually did address that whole thing, but I just couldn't get to it because he kind of took a detour right there and just went and told everybody else, he can stick your head out. I'm gonna slap you too, since we're hurting a little bit. But his misery, he's not the only one. Them boys from Indianapolis up with the Colts. It's 2 games. We're 2 games in, and trust me, I know this feeling. KO, I know this feeling better or worse than anybody. I want you to listen to what the coach said about what's going on up there.
It's just frankly embarrassing. It can't happen. So, man, I don't know. Like it just like offense. I feel optimistic about the Colts offense figuring it out, at least at the halfway point this year, cleaning up some things and Richardson seeing the game a little bit better. This defense, especially if Buckner is out long-term, which looks very possible with that injury he suffered, I don't know what the solution is here on defense. You got players that are getting paid big money, not showing up to these games and not playing well. And you got rookies that are not playing well whatsoever either, and young players that are not playing well whatsoever. And you got a defensive staff and defensive coaching, whatever their strategy is there, that's just not working. Like, it's just a mess on all fronts right now. And it's not just the GM. It's not just the defensive coordinator. It's not just the players. It's all of it. It's all of it. Like, this was an embarrassment. I know they only gave up 16.
He says it's everything. There's nothing going good. I know that feeling. You probably don't. You might feel that right now. I do think he's right. The Colts are one of those teams out of all the teams I watch, and I go through and I try to watch each and every team, especially since I'm doing a national show now. And they're the one team I can't figure out what their identity is on offense or defense. It's like, I thought we had problems, but I don't even know what they are.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot right now. And especially when you have vets. And again, it's like, yeah, you're paying big money to these guys and they can't perform. All of a sudden, you're either getting poor performances or you're relying on young players that weren't expected to step into those roles. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we know that we told you you're going to be doing like kind of a lesser role for us, but actually we need you to be like the top guy at your position now because the other guys aren't cutting it or guys are getting injured. And that puts everybody in a tough spot because you have a plan entering the season and you're like, all right, we have this nice balance of vets and young guys. We're going to work everybody in, and they can just all go downhill so quickly for a lot of these teams, it's not, just a Colts thing. A lot of other teams going through it too, but with Indianapolis, especially with a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who needs all the support he can get. I mean, we've seen Alec Pierce step up for him, but I mean, who else is going to step up for him, especially on the defensive side of the ball? So a lot of these teams are feeling what the Colts are feeling, but it doesn't necessarily lessen the fact that the Colts right now, their identity is a little iffy as it stands.
It is a little iffy, and they got a young quarterback who everyone knew was going to take them a little bit to get going. I do like their receiving core. It's just hard for me, and I like, of course, Jonathan Taylor. It's just hard for me to really, really get a finger, to get a pulse on who they are and what they are. Now, I joke about Matt Derry, but he's absolutely right. All they got to do is get back to themselves. I still think Detroit is one of the 6 or 7 best teams in the entire NFL. I think they have a lot going for them. There's no reason they should lose a game where Aiden Hutchinson has 5 sacks, or after 2 games he has 5.5 sacks or whatever, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown has over 100 yards catching. They still have to get back to being who they are. We're going to talk more about identity in the third and final segment. There are a couple of teams, more than a couple, but 2 in particular that are doing it. One you expected and one you didn't, that are doing this the old school way and actually winning games by running the football. And there's a theory on one of these clips I'm going to play in segment 3 from Matt Williamson, who's on the Friday show with me here, just like Kevin is on the Wednesday edition. And he has a theory. Former NFL scout has a theory, and I want y'all to listen to it in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Man, y'all know how I feel about FanDuel. FanDuel is the absolute truth, and it's America's #1 sports book. And that's why I talk about it all the time, because 1, FanDuel has done me good over the years, and 2, I just want to see y'all happy so you can get you some money too, right? If you heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, it's for a reason. Now there's something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, All FanDuel customers can bet $5, just $5, and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Now, make sure you go read everything on FanDuel. Find out if you're looking at baseball or NFL. Read the information. Find out who's out. Find out what's going on. Who's going to come out of the bullpen. All those things can help you. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On NFL. You can catch me here every single day in the barbershop, but earlier you can catch Tyler Rowland, the Madman. That's right, the Madman Tyler Rowland, giving you a double shot of NFL Espresso every single day, talking to all the experts, the local experts, the ones that know the teams better than anybody, and just giving you all kinds of NFL information. And then you come over here to the barbershop with me at lunchtime, and we do the same thing. You can find us on our YouTube page at Locked On NFL or wherever you get your podcast. Make us your first or second listen of the day. All right. So we talked earlier about the Lions and them not playing the way that we wanted them to play. Well, when Jim Harbaugh took the job with the Chargers, everyone felt like, okay, Justin Herbert. He's got Justin Herbert. Well, Justin Herbert's thrown for a lot of yards over the years and never won anything. And Jim Harbaugh drafted an offensive lineman, and they said, didn't you need to get your quarterback some weapons? And he said, offensive lineman is a weapon, right? And you know that right now, don't you?
I know all too familiar about this. I can go on and on about this one.
I bet you can. No, I can too, believe me, because I got some foolishness going on down here. I want you to hear, though, how ecstatic these guys are to be 2-0. We can talk about the schedule all day, but you can only beat who lines up in front of you. The Chargers are 2-0, and I'm not surprised. Check this out.
The Chargers ran all over the Carolina Panthers en route to a dominant 26-3 victory on the road. This is David Drogemeyer of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and the Chargers were running wild. 219 yards on 44 attempts. J.K. Dobbins, 131 yards and a 43-yard touchdown. That's back-to-back 100-yard rushing performances for J.K. Dobbins, who looks like a man on a mission. Justin Herbert was not at his best today, only 120 yards passing with 2 uncharacteristic turnovers, but also had 2 touchdowns, both going to Quentin Johnston, who notches his first ever multi-touchdown performance. The defense was suffocatingly good. They only allowed 159 yards of total offense and 3 points on the game. The Chargers are 2-0 to start the season for the first time since 2012. But for more on this game and for more on the Chargers, please check out the Locked On Chargers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
David Drogemeyer, and he couldn't contain how happy he was at being 2-0. Any surprises? I'm not surprised. Do you?
I'm not. You know what? The fact that they have so many former Ravens over there in Los Angeles, and me being the host of Locked On Ravens, I know their strategy all too well. And I can't be any more happy for J.K. Dobbins than I am right now. It's such a feel-good story. Suffered 2 brutal injuries in Baltimore when he was here. And, you know, we know it's never a talent issue with J.K. We know Greg Roman's philosophy. Both J.K. and Gus Edwards reunite in Los Angeles. And it was kind of the philosophy is Greg Roman likes to run that football. And so he trades away Keenan Allen. Mike Williams goes. And they rely on the offensive line, the ground and pound. And with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman teaming up again, obviously they were in San Francisco. You see a lot of things that had him be a successful coordinator at times in San Francisco, at times in Buffalo, at times in Baltimore. And this team, to me, they're one of the dark horses. I know. Obviously, you know, I'm not necessarily banking on them to win the AFC West with Kansas City there, but is maybe like a 5 seed. I could maybe see him being that team that like goes on a run. I'm really high on Los Angeles right now. I think they can make some noise.
I am too, especially with so many teams having this new thought process. Even teams with good quarterbacks like Justin Herbert. He's like, nope, we got to earn the privilege to be able to open things up, and we're going to do these hard things. Because I know he believes they can throw the ball anytime they get ready. But in order to win, you have to do it this way. Matt Williamson or Peacock and Williamson. Now, we saw Peacock and Crocker earlier. We're going to see Peacock and Williamson now. Matt Williamson, who's on with me every Friday, he has an interesting theory, and he actually gave the Saints some props because they were another team that won a convincing game the other day where the quarterback did not take 20 passing attempts. I think they scored on 7 straight possessions. Listen to what Matt has to say about the way teams are playing early in the year.
I really thought the Saints O-line might be in contention for worst in the league, and they held up really, really well, especially in the run game, but they needed to protect all that well, but they were strong, and that's really encouraging. And back, you were saying about, people running less plays. I wonder if defenses have overcorrected with this too high, don't let any big play stuff happen, and just getting gouged on the ground.
Right.
It might need to switch things up a little bit across the league.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing to be like, all right, we don't want to get beat deep, but if a team's marching down the field on you endlessly, you've got to do something about it.
And you're just getting blown back play after play. I mean, your front seven's just getting double teamed and duo. And, right.
You look at the draft. Defensive linemen getting smaller and lighter, linebackers getting smaller and lighter. So you're making it easier for those offensive lines to push you around.
I think they're on to something, man. I really do, because I think back to when Nick Saban said Michigan beat Alabama. One of the reasons is because in the playoffs last year is because they huddled. Teams that gotten accustomed to the teams not huddling, the defense is standing there looking at the sideline for the signals. Where when you play Michigan, they come out of huddle, they're ready to go. And you don't have time to look over and ask your coach for anything. So it's funny to me that an old school thing is now the new way that a lot of teams are starting to win.
Yeah, now there are a bunch of ways that defenses have tried to kind of combat this type of thing. But even when you talk about if you want to play single high, I mean, you're putting a dime linebacker in there, extra defensive back packages. If you want to go heavy and you play like your general base defense, I mean, get a little dicey for you, especially if you're worried about, because there are a bunch of teams that still play that. It's like, yes, you can take the short and intermediate stuff and, take your 4-yard, 5-yard, 6-yard gain on the ground. But they would rather do anything else than give you that 30-yard shot over the top and get in field goal range, which I don't blame teams for doing that. But if you see a trend over the course of the game, it's a matter of game time adjustments, in-game adjustments, and making sure that if you're getting gashed for 6 yards of carry on the ground, I don't think you have a choice. I mean, you have to adjust your personnel. And I think some teams can be so stubborn in just saying, well, we'll take getting gashed on the ground just so that we don't get 30 yards on one play. Well, let me tell you, Wig, I mean, they're getting the 30 yards on you one way or the other. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's getting in a couple more plays.
And when you go 3 and out, now you die a slow, painful death.
Yeah.
Now you're in the desert and you ain't got no food and you ain't got no water and it's 178 degrees outside and everything you see looks like a lake. And the thing is that's what happens. And I'd rather just get beat with big plays, man, than to just get 3rd and 2. They get 3 yards, first down. They come and get 5. They throw a little wide banana to the tight end. He gets 4. It's 3rd and 1. They get 2, first down. And the defense is standing there sucking air and they're gassed. I'm going to tell you the biggest stat this year, because of the way we're thinking. We're going to make a prediction here on the barbershop here on Locked On NFL. I think teams that, and this ain't no breaking news, by the way, this ain't no groundbreaking information, but I really do think teams that have time of possession are going to have a serious advantage this year. And because those teams that can't get off the field are going to get fatigued and get tired, is going to then put more pressure on those offenses. And those coaches are going to they don't even want to score fast. We got to stay out here for a little while because they're sucking air over there. And then that's going to be the dilemma. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams lose the way they lost back in the 90s when they played the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if people remember this. The Cowboys would be up 16-10, right, at the end of the 3rd quarter.
Yep.
And they scored 2 touchdowns and win 30-10, but you just felt like they just whipped you all game. And I just think that's something that we need to look out for. Something else I want you to look out for is my man Kevin Ostraker every single day on Locked On Ravens. Kevin, you're doing a weekend show also, right?
I do. We do the Ultimate NFL pregame show. So we do Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So we take the final segments, keys to victory, and predictions. We put it all into about a 2.5 hour extravaganza show. It's obviously out wherever you get your podcasting platforms, on audio form and also in video form as well. So if you like this content on the network, you want to see a full game day show, game day predictions, get ready for Sunday, check that out.
All right. Also, check out Tyler Rowland, the Madman, early in the morning tomorrow. And he will have Locked On NFL, the Tyler Rowland version, the Madman version. And then come back to the barbershop and check me out here every single day. Also, check out your local shows in the market that you where you live, whoever you root for. Make sure you check them out each and every day. All right, man. Until next time, we will have my man KO back next Wednesday if he wants to participate some more of my foolishness. Until then, you guys take care of each other. We'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.